we have got actually one of the first guests, the first guest that we had in the studio here when we started this whole escapade. We've got the whole gang from Parascientific Discovery.
That's right.
Paranormal Research Group.
Yeah.
And Alan, you're
Gary and I here are the founders. We found Parascientific Discovery probably in the early 2000s when we decided to start this whole thing, and in a coffee shop. And we actually were initially wanted to investigate many aspects of paranormal phenomena, Bigfoot, UFO, everything we possibly could. I mean, we spent time out at Skinwalker Ranch and viewed into the back of that pasture and checked that out. And we've actually been contacted by the Sci-Fi Channel in regards to Skinwalker Ranch, because we've spent some time out there. Right. But it just kept coming back to hauntings. It kept coming back to people contacting us needing help with this spiritual phenomenon that's going on in their homes. And so we decided that it would be in our best interest just to dedicate our time that we give from our families to just help these people out when they're dealing with this kind of thing. And so so we founded it, and then we've got Gary and Cole here, who are lead investigators and tech coordinators. Gary's kind of our lead tech coordinator, kind of handles all of our equipment and some new things that we've got working, coming up in the works, some new equipment that we're trying to build on our own, and then hopefully maybe mass produce it and get it out there to the masses so other investigators can use it. So, yeah.
Very good. Now, how long, Alan? How long have you had interest in the paranormal? Did you have an experience years and years ago? I mean, how did it all start? I'd like to hear all of your stories that kind of brought you here. Well, our listeners would like to hear all your stories that brought you here today.
Well, when I was 7 years old, I experienced a phenomenon that just absolutely terrified me. I grew up in a big family, and they were a strong religious family. So kind of closed-minded in a sense as far as thinking outside of the box. I shared a room with my little sister because I had 8 sisters, and so we had a smaller house, and so I shared a room with my sister. And at night when my mom would put us to bed, she can tell that there was something wrong with me, not wanting to be in my room. I never wanted to be in there, never played in there. My sister was always kind of fine with it. The only thing she ever complained about was being cold. And so, we lived in California, so it doesn't really get that cold. So obviously there was something weird. As soon as my mom would leave the room, within a couple of hours, the room would just freeze. Wow. And that explained, that's why my sister was actually wanting a blanket, because she was experiencing that. And then the only thing that I can say that I experienced that terrified me is I knew when it got cold, I was about to see shadow figures in my room. And it looked like a whole bunch of people crossing a crosswalk at the same time. Tons of people. And it would terrify me to the point where I'd have to build enough courage to try to run out of my room. And the only way to do that was to run through these shadow figures that I was seeing. And it just, as I got older, it happened more frequently. I started experiencing it. So I've always kind of been connected to it. I was mostly terrified for, a good portion of it. But then I decided, I want to understand this. Obviously, spirit is showing something to me, and they want me to understand. And maybe my vibrational level connects with these entities, and that's kind of why I decided I wanted to do this. And so formally investigating, I would say since like the mid-'90s, I've really been actively investigating the paranormal. So, well,
obviously something that triggered. If you're afraid to be in the room, and obviously was when you went in the room, would you feel the ambient? Would you feel the temperature?
Oh yeah,
drop right.
Right, and I think that's why, like I said, that's why my sister always asked for another blanket in the room, because she knew that the temperature would get really cold. She didn't understand why, because we were young, but I knew why. Every time it got cold, that phenomenon would happen. I knew there was something going on. I found out later on as I got older, my parents kind of opened up to me a little bit. I found out that my grandmother was an intuitive, and my great-grandmother was an intuitive and was actually a nun, and she quit her practice being a nun to actually do psychic readings, and so I thought maybe this is a lineage thing that had passed down to me. And Dallin here is my nephew, and he basically has similar things happening.
Yeah, I had to really head first into this thing. Like, I was not expecting it. I didn't go looking for the paranormal. It totally came looking for me. Huh? Yeah. And one night I was getting ready to go to bed, and I fell asleep, and I woke up at about 3 in the morning, maybe 3:30. It was ice cold in my room, and I looked to the side of me, and I could see like this 9-foot tall shadow figure. and it wasn't really masked. It was just kind of like a free floating like black form, but I could see two beady black eyes, and it was staring down at me, which really creeped me out. And I wanted to understand like what was going on, and it choked me into my bed, which like terrified me, and I passed out. And when I woke up from this,
physically
pushed me into my bed by grabbing my throat, and I passed out. I woke up and I was like, "Oh, that was a weird dream," like whatever. Sure. It was a dream. I looked in the mirror and I had 3 huge red marks across my neck down into my chest. Oh. And at that point, I was like, "Okay, this really happened. I want to know why it happened." I wasn't afraid. I was more kind of ticked off that it would come in my house and mess with me.
Sure.
And so at that point, I read every ghost book I could possibly get my hands on. I read Ghosts from Hans Holzer and all these different things from Hans Holzer that I could get my hands on to get me started on this. So that's how it happened for me.
Wow.
And Gary is an interesting story.
Good, Gary.
I had a lot of experiences as a kid, and and that always intrigued me. And as I got older, I made a lot of bad decisions, and it seemed like things got worse. More darker energy, and it took me a long time to get out from under that. And I always wanted to know what it really was. So I've just spent the last 12 years or so. Yeah. We've been trying to get evidence of hauntings, doing homes, doing old abandoned cemeteries, all that stuff.
Do you feel that it was like you talk about you had some changes in your life? Do you feel that it was external things that maybe caused those things in your life?
I believe so. There's things you can do that bring you down to a point to where these things have access to you.
Do you guys think, I've read about this, again, I'm not a paranormal researcher, I'm kind of a researcher's researcher, but when I follow all the different guests and listen to all the different stories, and not stories, but all the experiences, do you sense that when a person emotionally, let's say, gets depressed, gets really down and out, and of course a lot of people went through a lot of things with the economy, people lost homes, jobs, what have you, and then of course maybe, alcohol can get involved and drugs can get involved. Do you believe that when things really free fall down, you kind of open some doors up
absolutely
for something to walk in and take advantage, if you will?
I do believe that. I think that one of the things that we started noticing through the years of investigating, that a lot of people that had a drug addiction or alcohol addiction or were suffering from some sort of depression, there was always some kind of paranormal parallel with that. And if you believe, you really have to, it really comes from a belief system, because what you have to allow yourself to believe what you want to believe and how far you're willing to go down the rabbit hole, because it can go down pretty far. And so what I mean is, if there are negative entities, if there are demonic spirits that are among us, that are among us, they want to prey upon people that are weak.
Right.
And they want to go after people that are struggling emotionally, spiritually, maybe with drug addiction, physically, and they have a tendency of wanting to latch onto those individuals because it knows that it can kind of control them, keep them at that low point. And I think that's kind of where Gary was. He allowed himself to a level where these things can get a hold of him and attach itself to him, and it was following him everywhere he was going. It wasn't just certain places, it wasn't just a home, it was everywhere he went. He couldn't escape it. It was there, it was talking to him, it was harassing him. And so I think that when a person gets down to that level, I think it invites those type of things in, for sure.
Now, what about people that, again, I've done a lot of research. What about people that want these things to come in? Some people tend to get these things to come in, and they feel that their life really, really improves. I guess if you want to call it, they've sold their soul to the devil or whoever, and then they realize that, maybe I got the money, or maybe I got the girl, or maybe I got the house, or I got the physical things that I wanted. And now I want rid of it, and to get rid of it, there's a price to be paid. It's like selling your soul.
Right. And I 100% agree with that. It's basically when you open yourself up to these type of things, especially when it comes to like, kind of really lustful type of things, or things that, that bring you personal gratification. Those type of things bring you down, and I honestly think that these spirits, whether they be demonic or otherwise, they attach onto you because they feel that they can manipulate you into their will, make you think that what they're feeling and feel their emotions. Because there's been many times where we've gone to an investigation, we've walked into a space, and we can empathically feel the emotions of whatever spirit might be there. And kind of get those impressions, and we empathically feel those emotions. So if you're in a really screwed up state of mind, and then you come in contact with something like this, sometimes you open doors that you wish you never opened, and you wish that you can close them. You think that in the short term it's going to take care of some, problems, but it actually is a long-term problem. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So now you are.
I'm Cole.
Okay, Cole.
Yes.
And how long have you been with the group?
So me and Dallin joined. How many years has it been now?
3 years. About
3 years ago.
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah. So about 2009 is when we joined. Me and Dallin had kind of started our own thing.
Right.
We had been curious about it. Obviously, Dallin had his experience. Mine was more of when I was younger, my family owns a photography company that's in the Farmington Amusement Park. I won't name it. I'm sure you can guess, though. And so we were there after season hours. The only people that are going to be there is, one security guard. He drives a truck around, and that's it. So it was us and him. It was late at night. We were in there doing some repairs to a scene in the photography area. And I saw what's the phone museum, a light turn on, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever, he's checking it out.
Right.
I see the shadow walk across and the light turn off. Well, it was about 5 minutes later, the truck just came driving around, which usually if he's going to get out, he'll stop and park, go in the area. So to me, that was my real fascination with it, because there had always been the ghost stories there, and I was like, oh, whatever, it's just kid stories. And that got me, really into it.
Well, yeah, I think you have to experience it to kind of set wheels in motion, and then when you experience it, the curiosity is there. Now, you are the newest guy.
Okay, so this is Chris Rufflin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he was one of our clients.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
On an investigation, and he's also the founder of a new company that's being formed called Evolve U, which we're going to have him talk about. But we brought him along because we've listened to a lot of radio shows where they've had paranormal teams, and we've always wanted to hear the story from the horse's mouth.
Sure.
And actually have the client there verifying everything that we're saying. So it gives it more credibility to the story that that we all experienced. And the reason why we have him here tonight is because we experienced something with him that we've never experienced before in our entire lives. It was altering, mind-altering, life-altering, and it's still ongoing. It's an investigation that's been almost a year in the running. We've been investigating his property for July will be a year that we've been actually investigating. We've had cameras rolling at his house 24/7 for the since September.
Yep.
So let's hear your story. Let's hear about.
Gosh, I don't know if I can. We only got a couple hours, but
no, go ahead.
It started with me. I definitely was probably at a lower point in my life. I've always been in business and was having some bad business partnerships and some other stresses and things that were on me, and on top of a back injury, actually was being medicated for that. So I think those things make a difference, like you talked about. But one night I was in my basement, and I was washing off my face, looked up into the mirror, and it was like I could see through the mirror, and I saw an older gentleman and an older lady, and they basically were looking back at me through the mirror, and this is where it all first started, and they were just saying, can that mother ever see us? And I don't know if I can say on the air or not, but
no, don't.
Definitely, they were definitely using a lot of expletives and just, how can you see us? How can you see us? And I was just as taken back, and so I went to go in the corner. I heard a couple other female voices in my unfinished basement saying, oh my God, he can see us, and just real panic about me seeing something. So I went upstairs and told my wife, and from that day forward, it turned into constant harassment, just like Gary's story, following around, threatening my child's life, my wife. I started hearing it audibly first through a baby monitor in my house, and eventually it became all the white noise in my house.
We had actually he gave us that baby monitor, and Gary and I actually ran through it, tried to see if we can get anything to come through on it. Maybe we thought it was interference from somebody getting in on that frequency.
Right.
But when he gave us the baby, when he handed us the baby monitor, it was wrapped in tinfoil because he was terrified. And we took it out of the house, and then he goes and lays down in bed, and it starts yelling at him, saying, "Do you think we need this baby monitor to talk to you?"
Yeah, and it was really weird. So it came through in the baby monitor the first. This was like a day or two after I'd seen what I saw in the mirror, and I told my wife, and she's like, "Well, maybe you're just becoming, intuitive or whatnot." And
so in the mirror, were these people behind you?
No, they were. It was like I was looking through the mirror,
like a window.
Really?
Almost like interdimensional. It was really weird, but they were sitting on stools, like they'd been watching me and my family for a long time.
And now, just if we step back, is this a newer house?
This is a newer house. This is a home that's 7 years old.
Okay, so
newer area of Harriman.
So it's not some old rustic farmhouse.
No, absolutely not.
But doing like some historical background check on the property, what we found was that his house actually sits at the base of South Mountain, which was a heavily defended Indian area, and it was one of the last places in the valley that was actually settled by the Mormons because of Indians, and there's gold mines out there, and it was a quick way for them to traverse right through from the Tooele Valley into the Salt Lake Valley.
Gotcha.
So it was a heavily defended area, and there was actually stories that I found and dug up that Brigham Young actually cursed that area of Harriman because of the Indians, and the Indians cursed the land because of the Mormons that kept trying to move there and settle there.
Yeah.
So it was going on and on and on, and now his house sits at the base
of where all this
happened, and so that's
and our house has a set-in yard. We're 15 feet below, and the other neighborhoods and stuff, which we loved when we moved in. We thought great secluded yard, swimming pool, kind of our dream home and stuff. And so, anyways, through the baby monitor, the first thing I started hearing was answer the phone, answer the phone, answer the phone. I'm just going, are you hearing this, to my wife? And she's saying, no, I'm not hearing anything. And I just really couldn't dial where it was coming from. And then one night I walked past the baby monitor in our room, and I heard clearly that it was coming from that. So I picked it up, put it to my ear, and I started hearing a male voice and a female voice. The male called himself Bobby. The female called herself Grandma. And it started coming through as if it was my wife's grandma, and said they were protecting my daughter, and they were commissioned to protect her, and made up this whole story. And so the first night I heard it, my wife and me just thought, well, you're becoming intuitive. You've got some gifts that have been hidden or whatever. And so we're like, okay, kind of like how you said, you invite something in. We're kind of like, okay, well, maybe this is cool. And this was my first experience with it, but my wife and her family had a lot. In fact, her sister was on Psychic Kids a couple years back. And so, my first experience, the next night, same kind of thing happened. And I think it was the third or fourth night on the baby monitor. I went to listen in again that night, and all I started hearing was just laughter and cackling and a couple other voices in the background. They started saying that they were real people. They were hired to, F with me and my family, and they weren't ghosts, and, where these people have been hired. This has been the story the whole time.
Yeah, they were trying to come across as though that they were actually a group of people that were
here to harass you.
Yeah, basically there's this theory of gang stalking is what they call it.
Right.
And so they try to pass it off as, we broke into your house and we wired your house with cameras and audio.
For 10 days. They knew some pretty, they knew where everything was in the house. They knew everything we'd done. And coincidentally, we did have our door kicked in November when we were gone to Hawaii. I didn't notice it until probably January, right after Christmas, because we never used that man door in the garage. I saw shrapnel. So that lined up. And the guy said, who do you think kicked in your door, you dumb MF?
Right. And so he actually thought this was maybe real people harassing
for months
him.
and months and months.
Right. And he was hiring people to come into his house, paying thousands of dollars.
All kinds of people.
And this is basically through the baby monitor?
This all came through the baby monitor at first. And then what happened is, before I met Alan Gary, and it's interesting how we met and some of the things, but to kind of wrap everything short, this goes on for a little bit, and it's harassment during the night coming through that. So I decided, well, I'm going to unplug the baby monitor. That night that I heard all them saying it was real people and they were hired, and don't call the police, they'll think you're crazy. Don't look for our cameras, we'll kill your wife. There's a lot of stuff, and my wife's looking at me like, what are they saying? What are they saying?
Now she don't hear anything.
She can't hear anything. And every time I hand her the baby monitor, she can't hear anything. And so what was wild about it is that last night when they said they were real people, of course I didn't tell her anything I was hearing. I was like, I can't tell her. And the next morning I had a seminar that I had to go do, an event. I did a lot of speaking and different things, and basically I told her in the morning, I said, we all need to leave. And she looked at me and she just knew something was wrong, so we all left. Well, long story short, I unplugged the monitor, got rid of it that night, and the last thing I heard the guy say was, oh, you're mad, you're mad, you're mad, you're mad, you're mad. And he just kept saying, you're mad, you're mad, you're mad, over and over and over. I unplugged the monitor, and I kept hearing that until I finally fell asleep at 5 or 6 in the morning, got up at 7:30 to go do my event at the Larry H. Miller campus out here. And so went and did the event, told my wife in the hallway as I'm in tears, what I heard. And somebody's obviously been upset enough to hire some people to come after us. And so that's kind of where it started. And then a lot of things just didn't add up. And it started to feel just weird in the house. And my daughter at 2 years old was pulling her hair out. We took her to the doctor. They said she was fine. The guy would say he took claim for, who do you think made your daughter pull her hair? Like anything negative that happened in my life, it was these people who were doing it. And so it got to a certain point where we were pretty desperate, and I started thinking, it's got to be paranormal. I got back involved with our church and community, had the bishop come over, I've had Catholic priests come over, I've had shamans come over, I've had Reiki. I mean,
everything you
any
can
modality you can think of that could help with a haunting, I started having come in, and it would help for a couple of days, and then next thing you know, they're back. They being Grandma, Bobby, and sometimes a couple other
some other folks.
Right. So, of course, the next thing I do is I think, okay, medically, I need to get checked out. So I go to a couple doctors, tell my story, and, 2 of the doctors said, you're not crazy, you just have, ghosts in your house. We have one in mine. One doctor said I have one in mine, and we give him a room to stay in, and I'm just thinking, this is my doctor, talking, what am I going to do? And so one night it was just to the point where, my little girl would wake up and she would say things like, don't pull me out the window, don't kill mom and dad. I mean, she was saying things she didn't know how to say, things that weren't in her vocabulary.
Right.
And I just thought, there can't be a human out there that's this evil and twisted to do this kind of thing. It just didn't make sense. I didn't even know about the whole gang stalking concept at this point. But what I did do is I got online, typed in paranormal research teams in Utah, and I found a listing. And there's probably 10 or 12 different teams that came up on some directory that you guys are on. And so I sent the same email out, and it was a real desperate email. It was like, I feel like my family's going to die. I couldn't go to my office. I couldn't run my business. I couldn't do
this
anything.
is emergency. Please contact me ASAP.
Constantly in tears all day long because, how do you feel when everything's taken away? And, this entity would say things like, you like to walk around your house naked, pretty boy, and knew where my savings was, knew where my wife's jewelry was, knew where everything was
It never
placed.
wanted him to leave the house. It would tell him, if you leave the house, I'm going to do something to your family.
I'm going to burn your house down. Was a common thing,
Right. And so there was an actual point in time where he didn't even leave his house for like 115 straight days.
Oh, yeah, it was weeks and weeks and weeks, and I'm working from home and doing what I can, and all my partners and relationships and stuff with my business, they're just like, what's going on? I told everybody flat out, but they're all thinking I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the doctors and was tested, and there was nothing there, and long story short, I never heard back from any of the paranormal teams. And so then I just went the route of visiting some of the local shops around here in Salt Lake and learning about the healing power of crystals and different concepts and stuff. And you'll see I'm loaded, and I still I got stuff in my pockets. I'm there, man. And so what was interesting is I decided to move my mother-in-law and her current husband into the house so that I could leave and work and function, because I was told that if I left, my wife and kid were dead, and she'd be raped, and my daughter would too, and just the most vulgar stuff you could ever think of. I can't repeat the majority of it here in this room. So these guys kind of know more of what was said and has been done.
Well, I mean, there's even points where Chris would take his family and leave the house and go to like St. George for the weekend, or go to Vegas.
We went to Vegas so after that seminar, that first weekend, I said, we need to leave and get out of here. We can't be in the house. I left, and, in Las Vegas, I heard it. I heard it in the hotel room.
It would bang. It would make a banging sound. And you say, "You hear that? That's us. Can you hear us banging on the walls?"
The guy
you're hearing this as clear as day, just like.
I wouldn't say as clear as day, but like somebody standing next to you. Yeah, I mean, clairvoyant for sure. Like,
clear voices. I mean, you're not hearing it through any devices.
No.
But just you.
At first, it started all through white noise. So like a ceiling fan in our bathroom.
Right.
I could never turn that on. I turn it on within seconds. Somebody's talking. The hairdryer. Really a lot of white noise stuff in the beginning.
Fish tank.
I have a huge fish tank in my front room, just the running water noise and the pumps, and it was coming out of that. Yeah. So it was really manipulating this white noise through electronics. At certain points, it was telling me it was watching me through the screen of our televisions and our laptops.
When we first showed up to his house to meet with him, he had all of his ceiling fans on the floor.
Oh yeah, they were all taken down.
All taken down on the floor.
Yep.
I mean, you go to each bathroom, the fans are on the ground. Nothing that can make a sound was on.
Yep.
You know, it was
light switch covers.
You know, he would buy a plant for the house, and within 24 hours it would die. I mean, it was just really, something was really strange going on in the house.
All the corals in my fish tank, you know, I had 200 different types of corals. They're all dead, and
right.
You know, I've even had fish jump out when they're not. It's a fish-proof jump tank. So, you know, I couldn't explain all this stuff, and so you know, I kind of just started turning to paranormal and getting all this other help in there, and things would help for a short time. Even saging the house would help. My wife here and there started hearing certain things, but what it was said to me on the baby monitor is, you know, don't try to find our stuff. And we put stuff in your cars, your house, your office. I would hear it at the office bathroom ceiling fan. And sometimes seemed like it was coming through the windows, you know, directed right at me, that type of thing. And this whole time never heard back from any of the paranormal teams. And so one day after moving my mother and father-in-law in, and he was an ex-police officer, and well, so we thought, but that's a whole other story. But that's another show. So anyway,
people who are not
maybe he's listening. I don't know. So move him in, you know, as trusting, like, okay, this guy can protect my wife and stuff while I'm gone, and her mom, and he started hearing stuff through his Bluetooth headset. He started getting death threats. He was in the basement one night, and on a Sunday we're at church, and he has a 10-minute conversation with the corner of the wall, and this guy saying, you can't help Chris and Rachel, and it's my wife's name, and you know they've effed with the wrong people, and going with this whole game of we're hired to do all this stuff, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I am literally at the grocery store. I don't know if you even know how this all happened, Alan, but I was at the grocery store, and I had got a text that night. We had saged the house again, and I went to bed with, we're still here, where are we, we're still here, where are we, you know, type of talking in my ear and stuff, and literally waking up every hour and a half, every 2 hours for a good 6-7 months at this point before I ever met these guys, and just dealing with it the best we could, throwing thousands of dollars at the problem. We had a guy come in and look for cameras with basic equipment, couldn't find anything, but he said, you know, you've got major EMF and RF signals all throughout your house, as if there is cameras, but there's nothing here. Mm-hmm. You know, and this is the PI saying this, and I get the police involved every time I hear a death threat through the white noise or our house being burned down. I call them, and the police would come in and take a report, and we'll add it to the report, and you know, we've probably got a file 10 pages or 10 inches thick on it. But well, so what happened is I got a text from Alan one morning on my phone saying, hey, you know, we're here if you need us. We've never heard back from you. I was going through some old emails.
Right.
I've tried to reach out to you.
Yeah, in February
multiple times.
Yeah, in February 2012, he sends me an email saying his desperate email that he sent out to all these other paranormal teams. Right. He didn't get responses back from any of them.
That was in February, so it was right after.
And so I get this message from him, and I go in and I respond immediately. We're here to help. Let me know. Let's set up a time to interview. Let's talk about this. Let's get this thing taken care of. I send it back. I never hear back from him. So February, March, April, May, June. Finally, in July, I'm going through old emails, just getting rid of junk mail. Yeah. I see his email, and I'm like, I'm just going to send him one more email and say, hey, I never heard back from you. I tried. I've been trying to get a hold of you. If you still need help, we're here. And he finally got that message. Yeah. And the crazy thing was, I had been sending him messages like
the whole time. This whole time for 6 months, 7 months, whatever it was, I sent it once a week, and he never got a single one until finally that in July. Which wasn't surprising, because whatever has been doing this to our family has completely taken over all the technology in our house. It told my father-in-law that it had control over all the technology in my house.
It would read him his texts as he was reading them.
I'd be sitting there reading scriptures, and I'm hearing right behind me, over my shoulder, looking at my iPad, reading the scripture a couple sentences behind me. Mainly electronically based. I changed my internet provider, didn't make a difference. I changed electronics, didn't make a difference. I mean, all my webcams had tape over them on my laptop. People at the office are like, what are you doing? I'm like, is this about the new NSA thing? No, this is something totally different. And So, at this point, I'm just, so I call Alan in a grocery store parking lot with, my father-in-law in the car, and told him what was happening real briefly, and he goes, my gosh, this sounds exactly like what my partner Gary went through for years, this voice, this harassment, following around, and he starts telling me Gary's story, and this was the first time I finally was like, well, we may have, this is really what's got to be going on, and I got these guys involved, and now it's evolved out into, a full-on company that we've developed, and really, I hate to even call it a company because it's about helping other individuals, and we've brought in all kinds of healers and modalities and did an event, but we're still there with it. We've had times where we've had to get 45, 60 days, and I literally burn copal in the house every night. We light candles. We have a ritual that we do as far as that every night to keep the house clean and cleansed. And
what he's been noticing is every time he sages his house the very next day, these voices come back with a vengeance,
right,
and harass him, and then things kind of quiet down for a little while.
Yeah.
And then he starts to do, it's almost like as soon as he starts to feel like he's out of the woods with this thing, it always seems to creep back in to try to see. And see, now, one of the things that, as investigators, we were baffled. First thing first, we're sitting there saying to ourselves, okay, he's the only one that's hearing it. His wife's not hearing it.
Right.
His daughter really can't say that she's hearing it because she's too little to really express.
But I can hear what they're saying to her.
Right. And so, we're like, okay, so this guy, he's got to be something wrong. And he told me, no, I went and got a psychological evaluation. Everything's good.
Of them.
I got a drug test. I'm not on drugs.
Yeah.
And so, once that was verified to us, then we were like, okay, well, let's set up an investigation and try to see what we can do. And as you know, we have a psychic that we work with in our team.
Tia.
Yeah. And we had her walk through the property. And what was interesting and really hammered things home for Chris was, this thing was saying things to his ear, and Tia was repeating them.
We had several
at
times
the same time.
The same thing. Yeah.
That they were saying the same thing at the same time. So it just completely confirmed that there's an entity in this home that has been harassing him to a degree that we have never seen. And, and so I'm walking into this whole scenario going, I'm not hearing anything. I'm not seeing anything. I don't know what's going on here. But the first day we got there, Dallin and I were sitting on the couch, and right in between us, while we were having the conversation,
right,
in between us, we hear this voice that just says, "Get out."
And it's actually a VP.
And that voice sounded like the same that I hear.
Yeah,
the
it's
accent.
the same.
The guy has a southern accent.
No, it was audible.
Oh, yeah,
we heard it.
We
turned our head at each other and just said, "Did you just hear that?"
And luckily,
right, it was like somebody leaned down in between us and just said, "Get out."
Yeah.
And we were just like...
We weren't even there 5 minutes. We had just walked in to say, hey, we're PSD. Nice to meet you. Well, let's talk about your case.
Story.
And boom, instantly happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was alarming. But then when we decided to start setting up equipment is when we started gathering evidence and started really kind of getting an understanding of what was there. So.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Fringe Radio Show. Tonight, live in studio, our friends from Parascientific Discovery. Guys, thank you so much for staying up late and sharing this.
Staying up late, Pat. This is normal. This is normal for us.
This is even normal for me.
Okay, well, as long as you're okay with it. This is the best time for this genre, without a doubt.
For sure.
It keeps everybody up and going. Okay, so before we took our break,
we're just talking about the conversation I think when we met, right?
Right.
About you were sitting on the couch, the two of you went in to do the investigation.
Yeah, so we were sitting on the couch, and like I said, as soon as we sat down, we hear this voice just tell us to get out. I mean, it was clear as day, right in between us. We looked at each other. We looked behind us because we thought maybe somebody was standing there. Nobody was.
I honestly thought you were trying to tell me something, but then why would he be saying get out to me?
And then I looked over at him.
And I was like, wait a second. That was right here.
And this whole thing originated from the basement. Him being down in his basement and looking in that mirror, and it actually looked like he was looking into a window at people looking at him. But it's interesting because you would walk into the house, and the upstairs felt relatively relaxing and normal. Yeah. And then as soon as you start to head down and you cross the threshold, as soon as you cross the threshold of the door that leads into the basement, it's like the energy just changes. It's an instant change. It's oppressive. It's heavy. You feel like you're not wanted there. You feel a dark presence kind of.
Well, what I hear is,
Get out of my basement.
Out of my basement.
Yeah, it keeps every time Chris would go down there, it would tell him, "Get out of my basement."
And I've seen like the heat wave. It looks like a heat wave moving.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things we found that we've never, we kind of did a little bit of a test on it to see if it was what we thought it could be, but we found this footprint on the concrete floor in the basement, right. and it looked like blood. I mean, it literally looked like blood. I have pictures on my phone I can show you.
Yeah. Little girls.
And it looks like a little girl's footprint because it's only about 6-7 inches long, and so it's not a very big footprint.
Right.
And it's just one footprint. And I set my K2 meter on the floor next to it, and it just went through the roof.
It was going nuts.
So, and if there's people out there who don't really understand the K2 meter. The K2 meter measures electronic, or electromagnetic, the EMF, the electromagnetic field, and so when it's pinging all the way as far as it can possibly read, and it lights up a red light. I mean, it's measuring a milligauss. It's beyond 20 milligauss, and to kind of give you perspective on that. It's like if you were to have 4 or 5 microwave ovens running in that space at the same time, and just that EMF coming off of those microwaves. For it to be revolving around a footprint on the ground that looked like a bloody footprint and of a little child, and that was going, and just that general area was, there's just a dark, oppressive feeling.
And right next to the air conditioner, where a lot of times again, the white noise was like where most of these attacks were focused, the voices and stuff, and so even in the car, air conditioner, things like that.
Right. And see, and we as Parascientific Discovery, we never claim that we can actually remove entities from homes.
Sure.
Right.
Because we don't know exactly what can remove entities from homes.
Right. It's kind of how
we went through the whole gamut with Chris because, like he was saying, we had Catholic priests there, we had bishops there, doing dedications on the property. We had you walk through his house and you can see the residue of all the salt water on every door,
Catholic
on the walls, everywhere.
It everywhere. I mean, we cover.
And it's still there. I mean, you can. So all these different healers and modalities there trying to rid Chris of this problem, and nothing was working. And so, we told Chris, we can't necessarily get rid of what's here, but as long as you're dealing with this problem, we're dealing with it. And as long as you need us, we'll sit in the dark with you and bear this burden with you until it's gone. And we'll just keep finding whoever we need to find to get this problem, resolved. And we were able to find a couple of people that were actually able to neutralize it to the point where he can live his life.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where, in the sake of time, like I'm not going to go into everything that's happened, but it's been kind of constant, and I've just gotten okay with it. You get to a certain point. Gary told me one time when he dealt with this, he had to get to the point where he felt like I'm just okay with everybody in my life dying, and I got to that point with my wife, my 3-year-old, who's 3 now, and she stopped getting bugged, and the more confident I got, the higher my vibration got, the less and less this was happening. But still, there are times that things happen, and it was probably. I went to hypnotherapy for it, for the PTSD type stuff I was creating.
Regression.
Right, and so one of the other reasons I came on tonight too is to talk about our concept Evolve You, which really is a combination of a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. But I invited their team to be a part of it, and a major part because there's a lot of this going on right now. Mm-hmm. The more that I get out there, I was in a group of people this week, 7 or 8 of us are sitting down talking about this type of stuff happening to them. And it's different than target individuals, but yet kind of the same. So, I've looked at that concept and the gang stalking and all that and can't figure out why. I mean, we've always really been the type of family that's done what we can to give back, but so through these guys and through a couple of and just kind of reaching out and getting into the community around here, I started finding people that could help out with it. And I thought, why don't we get all these different modalities together? Let's do events. Let's give people a safe haven where they can, either learn about a gift they have and get help with it, like how Alan experienced what he did as a kid, or
right. Because when I was young, I had nobody to turn to.
Right.
My parents were shutting me down because of their religious beliefs,
and most do here too,
and so I had no one to talk to about my problem. And so I lived in fear and confusion, and, I'd go to church, but then I'd be like, well, then what I'm experiencing is not coinciding with religion that I'm following. And so I had nobody to really turn to and talk to about these problems. And, and maybe I could have come to terms with them at a younger age had I had a group like Evolve You to be able to reach out to and say, look, I've tried the traditional medications. I've gone to doctors. I've gone to psychologists. I've done everything I possibly can. Every time I take, you hear of a new medication coming out, you hear of a new class action lawsuit that follows it within 6 months. And so you're like, I'm tired of just doing the normal things. And so maybe there's a holistic way. Maybe there's a spiritual way of being able to, make myself, not necessarily, we're not necessarily trying to say that we can heal you, but we can help you by believing in you and believing in and what you're experiencing.
And I can tell you, just to give you and your team credit, which I try to give everywhere I can, because the one thing that got me through it was, Tia hearing the same things. Also, you guys give me the confidence to, and having a business background and speaking and stuff. I thought, what, I'm just tired of this. I'm going to bring this out to the public, and we're gonna do a test little event, see what happens. We did that March 1st. We had 320 people show up virally, not one paid ticket, and great sponsors and people that got involved, and the whole healing community, and just a lot of really neat things have happened, and new tools have been introduced to us too that would help people per se get to a point where they're better. Now, I'm with Al, and I don't know if there'll ever be a solution, and I don't know if I'll ever not be tormented, but I'm at a point in my life where I know who to turn to, have people to talk to, and people that stand up for us, and so that's really been our whole concept. And for people that might be listening, one thing I want to throw out there is that this team's always here in this valley, and they're committed, and we have a long-term plan, and we've got investors and people behind us that are interested in helping others out with these types of issues, even though mine's kind of extreme. We have a children's portion of our company. We have events. We have a center that we're building. And we actually have a site we set up for people tonight that want to go. And
there's a children's event tomorrow.
There's a children's event tomorrow. One of the people I definitely want to give some recognition to is the Healing and Light Center out in Murray. Tracy Gibbons and Royce Monson that run that. They've helped tremendously with these guys to help get our house clearer than it's ever been.
Go see Tracy, because I went on her table and she did some Reiki healing on me, and it was absolutely mind-blowing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah, amazing stuff. So they've helped a lot. Paul Smith with Mind Over Matter, which these are also all my partners in Evolve You. And Doug Johnson. Doug Johnson's been in holistic medicine now for 40 years. Works with all kinds of different things. And so we did set up a site. It's evolveu, Y-O-U, .info, where people can go and actually like our Facebook and get updates. And when's the next event? We're going to be going all over the country and doing different things with that. But I think just for people that are experiencing this, and one of the reasons I said, hey, I would love to be here tonight, wasn't really to promote the company side of things, but to promote that if somebody's going through this and needs to reach out, there's a venue now. And I don't care what it is I'm dealing with. I don't care whether it's individual or metaphysical or whatever. We're not going to stay quiet, and we're going to get everyone together that's having these types of issues and find ways to help.
Or to cope, at least.
Or to cope,
right.
Well,
see, and it's a collective of hypnotherapists and holistic, practitioners that can, provide you with help that you need, not even if it's something of a paranormal nature.
Yeah.
Say you are dealing with an addiction and you want to go to a hypnotherapist to try to help you with that addiction. There's people there that will be able to do that. But from our end and from Parascientific Discovery's involvement with Evolve You, there are many people that contact Evolve You saying, look, I've got these things going on in my house. I feel spiritually imbalanced. I feel like these things are going on. And they will actually send us out to these clients' home, investigate the property, try to validate, any of the claims that they're having, try to debunk as much as we possibly can. Because that's one of the things that is very important to our team is when we're dealing with homes, we have to be for certain, I'm talking really dang sure that this place is haunted before we tell the family that this place is haunted, because they're obligated to leases, they're obligated to maybe a mortgage on this home, and so you can't go into a home and tell them that it's haunted unless you really know with some solid evidence.
You've done your due diligence.
And I'll tell you, even if you had, in my case, this character had told me that, don't try to move, we'll find you.
Right.
And I knew I was going to get followed anyways. So it's like we either stand up and fight, and I learn ways to protect my family and help others, and the more I've done that, there has been some backing off done, because I think whatever this is definitely picked the wrong person to pick on. I'll put it that way.
Right.
I'm not a quiet individual, but
one of our listeners sent in from upstate New York, sent a question in. It says he's a paranormal researcher with a group. Says, I investigate and I've seen one case in particular, an elaborate hoax that included speakers and furniture and walls. And investigators, what did you guys use to debunk, make sure there was no hoaxes of any kind or possibilities?
It's hard to find that equipment here in Utah, I'll be honest with you. I've talked to companies out of state that say, hey, we'd love to come in and help you, but we have a 6,000 square foot home. So they go, well, it's $25,000. Well, not, it's after a year of dealing with this and not being able to run the business and things I do, you don't have that kind of dispensable income laying around. So we've done as much as we can. We've tried to protect our homes up. We've had prank things happen, but so has our whole neighborhood. And so it's tough. I wish there was more help out this way.
Well, let me give you a for instance. One of the things that this voice would tell him was, don't you ever go up into your attic, into your crawl space in your attic. If you do, that's it. That's the final straw. And so Gary and I and another guy, we went up into the attic, and we looked around the whole attic. And the only thing that was in there was the Romex that was connecting each ceiling light. And other than that, there was nothing else in there. It was just another tactic to make it think. But you actually did have somebody come in and look to see if the house was bugged. You had all the wall plates off. They're looking at all the fixtures, looking in crevices in the wall, looking in areas of the basement, seeing if there's any extra wiring that could be used for CCTV.
The thing that kept coming back to me too, Alan, is like, we've done all that, but if that was the case, we have had 7 or 8 family members hear it, and hear these people or these entities, but certain people, like my wife's in the house all the time, doesn't ever get bothered. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm in the car with people sometimes hearing it, and they can't hear it. Mm-hmm. So I go back to that sometimes. There's still that little part of doubt in my mind of like, okay, maybe it is somebody real and somebody just is this nuts. But to put this much time into it and a year and a half later,
I mean, if it's a joke, it's a joke.
You got to be a complete psychopath. You got to be a complete sociopath. And then on top of that, as I've got around this community, we've developed this Evolve You concept. I have had other gifts show up where I am seeing and hearing some positive things here and there in other places too. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to be in the position I'm in, but to be able to cope with it and have support from these guys, it's huge.
Our number one priority as a research organization is, especially when we're dealing with homes, is the number one thing that we want to go in there and do is try to disprove every single claim that the client has. And we try to debunk it. We try to debunk everything we possibly can, because if you think about it, of 100% of the claims, if we can tell them that 90% have a natural explanation, then that means only 10% of the time they're actually being affected by this kind of phenomena, which it was easier for them to live in their house if they know that it's not as frequent as they thought. So if we can come up with logical explanations, that's our number one priority. The little margin, the little piece that is unexplained, that's what we analyze, overanalyze, send to other research organizations that we know that we trust for their analysis. And then through Evolve You, what we do is if we determine that there's actually a haunting going on in this property, we can advise the Evolve You board members of, maybe this is a type of healer that we should send to this property to maybe try to balance the energy out. Because we have contact with many different types of healers.